For a pledge. Charlotte, if you'll
Please rise, place your hand over your heart, and join me in a pledge to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay. Tammy, if you can do a roll call, please.
Chair Mulhart.
Here.
Director Reagan.
Here.
Director McIntyre.
Here. Okay. I don't see any alternates in the audience. Agenda review. Any changes on the agenda?
Yes, Chair Mulhart. We have, we're recommending that item 4 be pulled to our January meeting. This is based on the request of Jan Mutual appeal, the appeal that you were to hear from Jan Mutual. That's our recommendation.
Okay, very good. We'll do that. Any other changes? Public comments, opportunity? Excuse me. Do you see how I did that? And I threw this little...
You can do that again if you try.
Well, I won't. Sorry. I'm sure Rob will have comments about that somewhere along the line. Yeah, you got pictures, yeah. Anyway, anybody have any comments? GMA items before we get started? Not on the agenda. Board members have any comments? Not on the agenda? Okay. The only thing I will add that's not on the agenda, if I can ask, see if the members agree or not. I don't know if we can actually do that, but I'd like to have on the January agenda a resolution honoring the service that John Flynn has given to us over the years. Obviously, we have an award that we present each year on behalf of good water management named after John, but I think a resolution or whatever is appropriate to reflect the fact that our history is really his history.
We can do that.
Okay? Everybody okay with that? Yeah. All right. John has the flu, by the way. That's why he's not here today. He'll let us know. Okay. Other than that, we have consent items. Anybody have any...
Move the approval.
Okay, a motion to approve the consent items?
Second.
Motion approved. Second. Any other changes? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. All right. Action item number 3 is the only one. And John, were you going to say anything, or are you going to let staff do all the presentation?
Either's fine. If there's need for clarifications, I can.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Great. My pleasure to provide...
Yes.
Oh, never mind. I got it.
Okay.
It's my pleasure, Board Member Mulhart,
Yeah.
board members of the audience, Gerhard Hubner, Watershed Protection District. I'll be presenting item number 3. I have a very short presentation. Background, and many of you, this will be common knowledge, but as you are well aware, the Freeman Diversion Structure was completed in 1991 by United Water Conservation District. That diversion structure included a fish ladder to allow adult and smolt-sized fish of any species to migrate upstream and to convey water to the United's groundwater recharge ponds and other diversion systems. Recently, the National Marine Fisheries Service issued what they commonly call a biological opinion on the Freeman diversion, NIMS, and that's the acronym for National Marine Fisheries Services. And their BO indicated that they did not believe that the existing fish ladder is working properly. So what are the implications of that biological opinion? Well, we believe that it'll be a net annual decrease of approximately 6,000 acre-feet of surface water that would normally go to the groundwater recharge spreading basins. There might be intermittent loss of surface water to the pumping trough pipeline, and subsequently you would have increase in seawater intrusion on the Oxford Plain from lower amounts of groundwater recharge and higher amounts of groundwater extraction. So what we've done is we've prepared a proclamation or a resolution of support for United's position, which we believe will help strengthen the coalition of water users and agencies with interests within the greater Oxnard Plain and the GMA. This was a result of the November 23rd, 2008 SAG meeting. The SAG did recommend that we prepare this resolution for your consideration at today's meeting. So therefore, we've drafted this resolution, Resolution 2008-10, for your consideration, and that's attached as part of your board agenda package today.
Okay.
And that's our recommendation.
All right, very good. Let me, if I may, and John Dickinson, who's our engineer and responsible for a lot of this at United, is in the audience. So, John, you can correct me when I go off base here. United's been in discussions with NIMS for 7 years. Is that a fair number? 7+ years? 10 years. And I can tell you that it's probably one of the most frustrating issues that the United board has had to deal with, as well as staff, and they've done an outstanding job of trying to put some reason to this whole process. And my personal opinion is that they're out of control, that they have some staff members that are hell-bent on rewriting the history of fish in the state of California, regardless of the impact it has on all of us and what we do. And in fact, I believe that although they're required to look at the impact, it's negligible. In fact, I've heard arguments that we pay too little for water and we can afford to do this. Their proposal, if it goes all the way through, is a $60 to $100 million capital expenditure, not including debt service, to basically redo the Freeman diversion and allow water to cascade over the top of it. And somehow fish will then ultimately wind up somewhere. I can tell you that I sat as president of the United board for 6 years before we finally got approval to build the Freeman diversion, and it was one of the frustrating issues at that time. The current fish ladder that we have at the Freeman was effectively forced onto us by Fish and Game and the like, and they saw a fish ladder in Northern California that looked pretty nifty, and we essentially built to those specifications. And my personal opinion is we were blackmailed. Either we build the fish ladder and put water through it, or else we don't get the Freeman diversion. So we're blackmailed into it. I believe the same thing is happening right now. If you've looked at what's happened up on the Klamath River in Klamath, Oregon, they've elected to take out 4 dams in lieu of building a $300 million fish ladder. Is a solution to that process up there. I believe this is the tip of the iceberg. Rob has been very good at every one of these meetings where this issue comes up and explaining to us that cutbacks, the amount of water that we save, is negligible. I would submit to you that this undoes 3 of the cutbacks. 15%, 20% of the cutbacks essentially get undone. Because when you shut down the PTP and the ability to shove water to the PTP, it puts the burden on Pleasant Valley and others in that area to pump their wells, and that is the worst possible area that we ought to be pumping wells. The system that we put in place, I believe, balances all the needs of everybody in the area. And United has spent well in excess of $30,000 to $40,000 a year since we built the Freeman diversion, trying to monitor and manage the process of watching fish go up and down that process. And their conclusion is, because we don't see fish, the thing doesn't work. Rather than a conclusion is, maybe there are no fish to go up there. And John and staff have done a magnificent job of looking at the history of stocking fish in our respective rivers to the tune over the years, and John, you'll have to give me the number, but we're talking in the neighborhood of 10 million plus fish. Is it even more than that or less? 3 million fish were stocked into the system, steelhead, to create a fishery as part of a movement by the county to generate tourism. Since then, agriculture has become one of our big industries, as well as tourism. And now we're trying to redo all of that process. This issue, if it goes unchecked, has the potential of shutting the Freeman down permanently, in my opinion. And it has the ability of putting a huge dent on the ability to abate seawater intrusion. Steve, I just saw came up, and Steve, you can talk about it as well if you like. But if we lose this kind of water, it puts real question mark whether or not we can meet our state requirement to abate seawater intrusion. So I think it's very important for the cities, the farming community, the county, and others. Somehow, we have to somehow convince a federal agency that frankly doesn't listen to anybody, that this is not doable. So, yes, ma'am.
A comment. My comment is, first of all, I want to get it out there that I do support the resolution. I think that the people we'll be sending the resolution to, or the people that are doing this, are part of a group that don't believe the world ever changes. And I thought for a long time, when I was on the water board, some of the people who were on the staff there, I thought, you know, if these people had been around when the dinosaurs were here, they would have done everything in their power to make sure that the dinosaurs are still here, because they don't think anything ever changes. And that's what, I don't know if, I mean, you know more about the history of this than I do, but I do know that the world changes. It's been changing for years, and whether or not the steelhead were here or not, they're not here now, and these people want to go back to what life once was. So I support this. I'm going to sound as if I'm facetious, but the new administration says that they want change, and maybe there'll be some kind of change here in their attitudes, and maybe we need to work on that, but I don't see that happening right now.
Okay. Steve, do you want to say something?
You know, this issue changes every week. I have some good news, and that is in a meeting the night before last, one of the higher-ups in National Marine Fisheries has agreed to start the process basically over again, and to take a look at, through our Section 10 Habitat Conservation Plan, look and see if, you know, there's some openings here. So I think we made a big breakthrough. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. There's going to be a meeting with Caltrout's Council in San Francisco tomorrow. So they're
Okay, all right, that's good news. I think, however, it's important that we keep going forward with this resolution.
absolutely.
And I would ask to those of you in the audience, Henry knows as much about this as everybody at the Kiegas board, has to support this. The city of Camarillo, we're going to get the city. We have to come together as a community to protect what we have been doing after the last 50 years, and that is recharging. Somewhere along the line, we don't get credit for the fact that we've put in excess of 3 million acre-feet back into the aquifer. And if that is not a huge environmental movement, I don't know what is. So we don't seem to get credit for that. So I would encourage all of us in our respective responsibilities to add to these resolutions. Rob, I knew I'd get you up here.
Couldn't help it. Rob Saperstein for City of Oxnard. And tiny story. One of my partners is a city attorney for a city that shouldn't be named, a little bit north of here, was a city attorney. He was sitting in a chair like Mr. Bowata and gesticulating, bouncing in the chair, and whoop, feet overhead backwards in his chair during a city council meeting. So,
Oh, my goodness.
You know, a little hit of the mic is minor.
Oh, yeah.
The kids
As long as I
are-
don't do a half gainer to the rear,
That's
I'm
right.
okay. Yeah.
Caught on tape. And I agree with the chairman and the board. This is one of the most important issues facing our water community here now, and it could be devastating. So I'll do what I can to try and get this on the City of Oxnard's council agenda and get something similar, if not a letter from the city manager. I wanted to make sure that the resolution says what we intended to
Okay.
say, so I just had a couple
All
words,
right.
and I don't mean to slow this down. So
No, let's get it right,
if it
because
needs
this
to
is
happen.
important.
And this is a little bit that I'm a little naive to exactly what's happened with United and NIMS.
Okay.
In the third recital, the last phrase says to get the Freeman diversion into compliance with the Endangered Species Act, and the implication is somehow the current operations are breaking the law because they're not compliant with the Endangered Species Act.
Okay.
If that's not correct, this shouldn't be in there.
All right, let me ask John. He's sitting right behind you. John,
That is correct. There's incidental tape that we have no permit.
So,
Okay. All right. Very
now, and separate question, whether you want to acknowledge it in a resolution like this, the sentence could be restructured a little bit to just acknowledge that you've had a lengthy Section 7 consultation process to deal with Endangered Species Act issues. So, no, I'm not sure that the GMA having a resolution somehow legally impacts United's circumstance should you choose to sue NIMS at some future point, things like that. So
well, the United has, if you add the words in there, United has undergone a difficult and very lengthy Section 7. Add in the words very lengthy. Would that be appropriate?
and that's fine, and to process with National Marine Fisheries, U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, to deal with Freeman diversion issues and Endangered Species Act.
Or to bring it into compliance with the current?
It's the compliance word that I was just trying to get.
Do you have another word that you want in there?
He just wanted to
respond
say to deal with
Yeah.
Freeman diversion issues related to the Endangered
Yes,
Species
that's
Act.
fine.
Is that what you're...
That would be perfect.
Okay. All right. I see some head noddings. You okay with that, John?
Yes.
Okay. Al, if we make those changes here in real time, can we still approve this?
Yes.
All right. You okay with the changes that there? Because you're going to have to buy off on this?
Yes.
Okay.
And a couple other
All right.
little sorry to do this.
Yeah,
and,
no.
And so I assume, and then the last recital, it is except for now, maybe it's withdrawn. The biologic opinion was a final biologic opinion that was issued.
It's still the case, but now it's mute.
Well, let's write it
It's
back.
not in writing yet, is it?
Yeah, we don't have it, and
Yeah, it's not.
we don't have it in writing. And my experience with them is what we hear today is not what I hear tomorrow. We've played that game for too long.
So maybe I'll leave that to Steve and John to suggest something different there. Again, just trying to not recite something that's not factually correct. And then the last, maybe the most important piece of the puzzle, the last sentence of the actual resolution uses the phrase "common sense solutions to restoring fish populations." The implication is somehow there were significant natural steelhead populations that have been impacted by Freeman diversion exclusively, and I would question whether that's the case. So maybe it's just protecting riparian habitat, and then there's no mention in here that there are thousands of other influences on the river system that have occurred over the last century that are unrelated to water supply issues, unrelated to Freeman diversion operations, that aren't making it into the equation, and the Habitat Conservation Plan and the Section 10 consultation process is a perfect place for that to occur.
I think
So,
that's a
side
good
issue.
idea. I've got these now.
But to somehow mention that there are other influences, and maybe it's just saying common sense solution to dealing with fisheries
All right.
issues. And
All right, let me stop for a second. Let me ask you folks what you want to do. It may be that the solution is to send it back to staff and incorporate some of the things you suggested, and bring back a resolution to us at the next meeting that
So
incorporates
I'll
these.
stop there, and then it's a timing issue. So.
Well, and that's an important point. My understanding is United wanted this sooner than later.
Okay.
Specifically with some of the negotiations, they wanted this resolution.
Why don't we ask your manager how he feels about the restoring fish populations? Because if there's a disagreement over what the fish populations were,
If
then-
there was fish, the question is how many. That's the question.
Yeah.
John and Steve are going to have to address this. If you want the resolution today, I can make the few changes that Rob has suggested and the ones that we can track, or I have to roll this back and you're going to deal with another board with new members, possibly, next month. What would you like?
I thought that Rob's comments were pretty good, and we probably want to put something in there, and it might need some thought. So I think rolling it to next month would be okay.
Okay, you all right with that?
And I'd add something to
Because
this.
I've got these changes here, we can do this on the spot.
We can do this.
Al
This
said.
isn't undoable. This is not complicated.
No, I'm
Mr.
just-
Abbott's comments were excellent.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's
We can
do
do it
the
here.
first two that we've agreed to.
He said he had another one, though.
Okay,
Did you?
No. Well, I had a clarification on the general preamble discussion. The issue here regarding water resources is not whether or not the ladder works. That's a complete separate issue. That's the finance issue of whether United and the pumpers would have to pay to build some new capital structure there. The issue here with water resources is having nature-like conveyance from the Pacific Ocean to the Freeman Diversion. Normally, we divert lots of water that the biological opinion is going to require United to release that to the ocean so that fish can swim in it.
Okay.
And there's a couple different pots of that water. There's one that United proposed to do, and then there's one that NIMS imposed on us after the fact that are about the same amounts. They're in that 7,000. So the total hit to the aquifers is closer to 12 or 14,000 acre feet.
okay,
Half of that was something that United also thought we probably ought to do anyway.
okay.
So,
All right, so now let's, before you leave,
Okay.
the first two, that Charlotte, you were tracking them. Then this third paragraph, you're going to change the wording.
We're going to add, it would then read, whereas United Water has undergone a difficult and lengthy Section 7 consultation process with the National Marine Fisheries Service and the United States Bureau of Reclamation to deal with the Freeman diversion issues related to the Endangered Species Act for steelhead trout.
Okay, everybody agree with that?
yes.
Okay, and next one.
The next one will be down in the now therefore be it resolved that the Fox Canyon GMA acknowledges and declares that United's operations are important for protecting aquifers, essential for local cities and farms. Further, that water resources managed by United are essential to the economy of Ventura County, and the Fox Canyon GMA Board supports United's mission to conserve local water resources in an environmentally balanced manner. Thus, we call upon all parties to work together toward common sense solutions to protecting riparian habitat while maintaining water supplies needed to replenish critically overdrafted aquifers.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Rob, is that me what you want? Okay, with those changes in place, can I have a motion?
I will so move, as I read it.
Okay, and a second? And a second. Any other discussion from the audience or board members? Henry?
I'm Henry Gromlich, Cayugas Municipal Water District. You can put down your pens. I don't have any other words to add. But I would like to say that Cayugas Board of Directors is very concerned about this issue and shares your concern, your board's concern, as evidenced by this discussion. United is a very important partner for Cayugas in terms of really integrating water resources countywide. And the Freeman diversion is a central and significant portion of that. So we certainly support your action today as this revised resolution represents. And I might also just make the passing observation. I think this is one more indication of the degree to which the GMA's mission has really become integrated with many other issues that are happening both in the regulatory environment as well as the environmental area. And I anticipate that in the future you're going to see more and more of these issues in which you're going to have to weigh the groundwater management against kind of the full environment of what we have to deal with. So I appreciate your broad concern on these kinds of issues and offer you that Cayugas is there with you.
Okay, thanks, Henry. All right, anybody else have any comments on this? Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Mulhern,
Aye.
Director Graven,
Yes.
Director McIntyre. Yes. Director Moore.
Okay, great. Thank you. All
Chair,
right.
might I make a little
Yeah.
quick comment
Yes.
before we move on? This seems to me to highlight also a side note, but I think it's important to demonstrate to the public or regulators, others in general, that we're doing all we can with regards to recycled water as well, getting that going in our system as part of our large program of being sustainable here. And so projects like the Brine Line, the regional desal plant there in the Las Posas, the GREAT project, all of these types of things I think are going to be critical, and I really hope that we continue to move forward in those directions as well.
Okay. All right, very good. Let's deal with item number 5, please.
Call it up for me. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Gerard Kapusik with Watershed Protection District and serving as agency staff this afternoon. It's my pleasure to bring to you a brief first quarter progress report. And let me just start that off, and we'll run through this fairly quickly, but be happy to answer any questions you have just by saying that as a matter of general observation, due to your board's keen vision, sage guidance, and adoption of tough fiscal love policies, the GMA in its first quarter has met and exceeded its budget targets. We are on track. The budget is balanced. Its first quarter performance is under expenses. We're right on track on revenues. And while the first quarter does not a full budget year make, the initial trends are auspicious. So I'll go through this fairly quickly. In essence, there are 4 or 5 key slides we want to focus on that talk about performance metrics and just get us to that point. First of all, in terms of highlight, just a little over $1 million, just shy of $1.1 million in available funding resources. The lion's share of that, of course, is the year-end fund balance that we carried over. Through the first quarter, we received a net of $122,957 in operating revenues, primarily pump charges. And the reason I say net is as you recall, the GEMS fund revenue was applied against the 2008-1 billing. So this is a net number after deducting the refunds for all those folks who had it. And that's just about on track, 96% of the target figure, but close enough because we didn't precisely get all of the refund or the payments back yet, but the lion's share are there. So that does not concern us that we're just under 100%. With respect to expenditure performance, we are significantly under that, primarily, as you'll see when we get into that, in terms of PWAC charges, and that is primarily a function of the time it's taken us to get the joint employee position on board from United. That is, I believe, reaching conclusion, but has not yet happened, so that person's not up to snuff. And we've been preoccupied on a couple of key items with respect to our own staff. So we're under, but we're on track in terms of the rest of the year. So I would not, again, be untowardly smiling at the amount less, but it's significant that we are less. Overall, based on first quarter, we have a minor adjustment to the projected year-end fund balance number. We're now looking at, based on first quarter trends, that it would be something on the order of $630,000, which was roughly 2% below what the target was when the actual budget was adopted back in July. So those are all positive overall metrics. With respect to revenues, as you can see, we had our fund balance carryover, and the net amount from the semi-annual pump charges reflected the GEMS credit interest refunds. We have not booked any interest earnings or surcharges. The main reason on interest earnings is there was just a trailing in the county's booking of it until after September 30th, so it'll appear in the second quarter numbers. Not a problem other than just in terms of timing. And so overall, we're within 4% of our overall target through the first quarter of available resources. With respect to expenditures, normally we have the top 5 expenditures. In this case, they're only top 4 because once you reach that 4th expenditure of board member insurance, all expenditures were below $1,000 in any single, so we just aggregated them. And you can see the metrics. As I said earlier, the PWAC charges, the target figure for the first quarter at the $600,000 for the year would have been $150,000, and we'd only expended $90,000 of that. So we're well under that. Everything else tracks pretty close. The most significant thing, of course, is we have not drawn anything from contingency, so the full $100K is available should we need it through the rest of the year, and alternatively, it will add to our fund balance if it's not utilized by the end of the year. So We're in good stead on the expense side. As I just indicated, there were no contingency transfers, so that's fully available to us. Essentially, have a slight revision to the year-end fund balance figure. It's within 2%. Positive effort. If our performance in second and third quarters and through fourth quarters continue, then we'll be right on track. So our recommendation is for you to receive and file the report by motion. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions for Gerard? Anybody in the audience? Just staff's recommendation?
Move to receive and file.
Motion? Second. A motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Hearing none. Opposed? Hearing none. So moved. Okay, great.
Perhaps your board could give night classes to the California State Legislature, whose current fiscal year budget is not balanced.
We're going up there at 4 o'clock this afternoon, taking it over. It's the way it's going to be. Anybody wants to come with us? There's room in the airplane. Just come with me, and we can take care of it.
And the four of us are going to handle what the 150 some odd of them do.
Yeah, we're going to put them all in separate rooms, padded cells, and then we're just going to deal with it. Hey, we have an executive officer report, and I was shooting for a record today, but we're over a half hour, so I'm not going to do any record today. So I could go 3 hours if you want to go, or we could do an
And I have one item to add to the executive office report. I'd like to end the year in good news, good notes. We have heard that the grant that we applied for has been funded or will be funded. It's the $250,000 grant for meter calibration telemetry. So that's some good news.
Good. All right, we're going to adjourn hearing. Yes? Yes, receive and file.
Yes,
Can we have
move to
receive
receive and file.
Okay. We're going to adjourn to closed session. Then I would assume, Al, out of closed session, we'll reconvene to make an announcement, but no action.
Or not.
Right? Okay. Does anybody else have anything? I wish all of you a very merry and happy holiday. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, because we didn't have a meeting in November, and we moved it up in December, and I will see you all next year. Okay? Meeting adjourned. Now we'll do the closed session thing. It's recess to closed session.